Well, welcome back, Steph, to the
Thank
Divergent
you.
Talent Alchemist. We're so excited to have you on again for the fourth time.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Just going to shout out some people in the chat. Hi, Anna. Hi, Phil. Hi, Melin. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Hi, Sabi. Hi, John. Hi, Marielle. So we're going to let people roll in. This is going to be a casual conversation between Steph and I. She's a leadership coach. She's been on here before. She's based in Florida. And today we're talking about egos, credentials, and social media. And Steph, if you want to kick us off and give a
Yep.
little bit of insight to how we even landed on this topic.
you know, I was thinking about that this morning. Like, this is a juicy topic and probably one that touches a lot of people because we all have everybody's got an ego for sure. An ego's not a bad thing, right? So everybody's got one of those. A lot of people have credentials, and here we are on social media. So, like, how is this coming together and what prompted this? And I think if I remember back, Jen, I was having a bit of a day, and I think I was reading an email, and it was talking about like, oh, check us out over here, what these Stanford grads are doing. And I was like, "Ugh, if you're leading with that, I'm just," and then I kept going and it was somebody else touting like their list of letters after their name. And I was like, this is like, okay, a theme in the morning. And I just felt myself get really frustrated because it felt like people were using that as a barrier. And I reflected on that for myself, like what is putting me off of that? But I think there's a little bit of this happening, a little bit more of this happening out there where people are like, well, listen to me because I have PhD, MD, DO, whatever, MBA, making up other stuff. It's like, hey, look at me, look at me. And I think, like, how do we balance it? Because credentials are important, but where do they fit? And so this is what I've been thinking about lately.
Oh, I love it. And I remember when I worked like in HR in a corporate setting, if you went out to my LinkedIn, it was, Jen Benford, comma, Sherm, SCP,
Yeah.
comma, MSc, comma. I think I had BS in there at
No
for
comment.
bachelor's in science. Um,
Right.
but I felt like at the time I needed to lead with that. Because I think as a society, we tend to look for that as a first, like, okay, I'm hiring a coach. What credentials do they have? Or I'm looking at this person for this HR or leadership role. How do they fit? Even down to like job postings, and
Mhm.
I've worked with a lot of them over the course of my HR tenure. Like, sometimes we were requiring a PhD for what? Like, what
Yep.
I mean, and this was particularly I'm talking about the education space, but we get very, very hung up and, so yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and I see both sides of it actually. What do you
I
think?
do I do too, and the stuff that you're mentioning is valid. Like, there are times and this is where credentials are useful, and I see a comment here, like, they're both important, especially in the age of grifters. I mean, yes. There is absolutely that. Listen, if I go to a doctor or I'm looking for a lawyer or a therapist, I'm absolutely gonna be looking at their credentials just to, like, as a to make sure there's a level of vetting that goes alongside of that. But I think we need to understand what those credentials stand for. I mean, a credential is like a snapshot in time. Okay, I have an MBA. When I introduce myself to people, I do not say, "Hey, I'm Steph. I have an MBA," but I absolutely use it in my signature. It says something about me. But let's talk about that. What does it mean? It means that at one point in time, like 20 years ago now, I did a program and I finished a program to a standard that was at least acceptable enough to graduate. What did I learn from that? I mean, that's not part of the MBA. Those are just letters. Like, what did I really learn? That's where it's like you have to read my stuff or have a conversation with me in order to understand what it is that I'm about. That MBA, what does that really tell people?
Mm.
I can finish something and I've invested in my education. I think that's about it. Now, that's not the case for all credentials. I'm just saying for myself, it's a little bit of a tool, but what I really want to do is like talk about what's important to me. What is my lived experience? What kind of value can I add? That's the stuff that's important.
I love that. And hi, Jason. Hi, Karen. Hi, Sid. Um, yeah, I think to your point when we first jumped into the conversation, like when people lead with that, it gives at least from my opinion, a little bit of a different energy. And I used to do it. Like I'm sharing that transparently, right? Like, oh, I was relying on, oh, I have my master's, or I would introduce myself and, or even someone else would introduce me and be like, oh, she's in HR and she's head of this HR department and she played D1 soccer. And it's like, yeah, okay, but like what type of person am I? What type of lived experience? I think that you can only learn so much from a textbook, and like hands-on experience is so valuable. And some of the smartest people that I know never went to college. And then I know some really smart people that went to college.
Yeah. Some people have really good, credentials and fancy things at it. And then, think about like doctors, for example, or amazing lawyers. And it's like, in order to be a good doctor, talk about that for a second. Yes, of course, I want them to have a degree, a credential that says they're allowed to practice. But there's more to it than that. Like if you've got a doctor who doesn't listen or doesn't believe in you or thinks that they're so arrogant they know more than you do, that's not going to work. So it's like a credential and so if you're hiding behind this idea and it creeps into identity as well. So when you're introducing right yourself, be like, well, I'm Steph, I'm a human, but no, like here, let these things kind of speak for me. That's where I think we run into challenges if we sort of hand out or we sort of outsource like our own agency in a sense. Like I don't know, I'm not an MD. You tell me what I need, but actually nobody knows me better than me. So there is this balance of like, what are they doing as a service? It's a tool, and they're absolutely useful, but sometimes people hide behind them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sid says D1 soccer is more impressive. Thank you.
Yeah, for real.
No, I'm a human, Sid. Uh,
Yeah. It's a
that
funny balance though, isn't it? Because it's like also how do you describe you like when you because this is another thing and it plays more on the ego side, but
yeah.
put credentials to the side. If you're introducing yourself or you're giving a talk, I think context is also a really important factor. Like if I am going to a conference and I'm speaking to business owners and I'm talking about coaching, I'm going to make sure that at somewhere they know that I've got an MBA so that we can speak to a certain level. But again, it's not what I'm leading with, like there, but, and then if I go to the dentist, do they care if I have an MBA? No, they don't. I have a funny story about that because and I think this is also a clock time ahead this morning on my walk. I remember going to my grandma's house and my dad and I were going on a drive around the block and we see this RV and on the RV, it has the wheel covers and the wheel covers say this guy's name, this guy's name with DDS or doctor or something. And I was like, that is so funny because it's out of context. Like, I don't care if that guy is a PhD, dentist, whatever he is, like, unless I need his services or something, it's just kind of like showing off a little bit. Like, I'm smarter than you, or I'm better than you. I probably make more money than you. And then we're using a credential to separate ourselves from other humans. And that's, not landing with me very well.
Mm, yeah. And I think the other interesting component is I've seen this on the internet and it kind of segues into social media a little bit because it's all connected,
Yeah.
is as a society, I see this every day on TikTok, on Instagram, on Substack even. We are so quick to discredit somebody because they don't have a credential.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
it's and it's I do not believe that because you have a credential like master's, MBA, whatever, that makes you, better, because not everybody has the same access to resources. From an educational perspective, I think I love learning. Listen, like continued education forever. But I will say that the last 18 months on Substack, I have learned so much more from individual people like you, Steph, and others, um, that I probably wouldn't have got in the classroom or the corporate setting. Like just connecting with other people in different disciplines and being a sponge. Like I write a lot about neurodiversity. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist,
Mm.
but I've researched the brain a lot. And that's the other thing too, is trying to pull in experts where there are gaps. Um, but it's very frustrating when I remember I think I sent you a thread of there was somebody that was kind of insinuating, this was the subtext that I read in this comment, who was somebody with who works in I don't know if it's psych or I don't know if it's a psychologist or psychiatrist, but they were kind of insinuating like I shouldn't be talking about, certain things
Mm,
I talk about. And so that was like kind of a part of this conversation as well that we're having today. And I was super frustrated in the moment and triggered, to be honest, because I was like, well, I've actually been let down a lot by many people in the medical system. So, although I've had great doctors, I've had some therapists, and I know our community can speak to this as well. Like, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I hear it every day. Like, my therapist doesn't understand neurodiversity or whatever it is. And
yeah.
so, credential does not equal knowledge, like you said earlier. What's the lived experience?
Yeah, 100%. I love what you said too about like connecting is a big piece of that. It's like connecting people and being able to listen. And in order to really listen, there has to be a thing about, there's something about humility in that. Like if you already think you have all the answers and all the information you need, you're not going to listen to understand. You're going to listen to respond. And there was a huge difference there. So when we talk about like, do credentials impact you to the point where it's like, listen, I already know where this conversation is going. So let's save ourselves the time. Just do this. Listen to me because I have all these letters behind you or I have whatever and go. That's going to backfire. And people, I think, are getting more tuned into this. Like, I can't connect to people who are not open to connecting. And I think there's something about being human. There has to be a level of respect, humility, something that a common, and we're more similar than we are different in my opinion, right? So, like, if we're using different ways to differentiate ourselves and, like, well, I'm better than you because I have this, or I'm different, or whatever. But the reality is, we just want to connect. So, can you use the credentials and ego to connect, or do you use that to set yourself apart and usually higher than, right? In this case, because, well, I have a PhD, so I'm inherently smarter than you on every topic. Like, well, no.
Right, right. Oh, I love that. It's so important to have humility and to have that like flexibility, the agility, the thirst for continued knowledge. Like I like when people challenge my perspective, but with grace, right? Not I mean, we talk about social media. There's a lot of like internet trolls out there. I had someone this week. I was actually laughing at this, and it used to bug me a lot more. I still get triggered sometimes, but someone said, "This is AI slop" on a literal video of me. I'm holding
Oh,
a
I saw that.
can.
You sent it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You sent that over. Yeah.
It wasn't AI. It was me holding a can, cheersing the camera in an ad for this company, and this guy put, "This is AI slop," and I was like, "Thank you for the compliment." Like it's actually just me
It was
holding.
probably just AI. It wasn't even a guy. It was just some bot that thought it recognized itself and didn't. No, but I think you point to something really important here, which is it's noisy out there, and I think people are looking for ways to create a little space for themselves. I mean, listen, I'm trying to do the same thing. It's like I write something, I want people to read it. I want to connect with people. And it's a noisy world out there. So how do we do that? And you can go to there's different ways. Like some ways you can be super controversial or you could be super fancy or whatever. There's different approaches, but certainly one approach is you should be listening to me and this is why. And then you set yourself above and you're like, I have all the answers for you. And you see this everywhere. Even credentials aside, it's like see this on Substack too. Like, if you want to do X, I have a framework. You should listen to me and also give me some money and I'll show you how to do it. So everybody's got this idea and some of it is super legit and there are really good people doing this. And there are people who don't have that experience who sound the same in many ways to the people who are legit. And like, how do we differentiate between the people who really can help and the people we do want to connect with? And the people who are maybe just faking it. They have a nice facade, but underneath there isn't much depth, right?
Oh, I really love that. How do you tease that out? And also, I love your comment about being above versus walking with your audience, whoever that may be.
Yeah.
Um, because I think people resonate with authenticity now. And the performative, like when you contrast LinkedIn versus Substack, and this was part of our chat too, is like, gosh, you go over to LinkedIn, it's like, I just got promoted to senior manager of the world, and like, it's that little like corny rocket.
Yes. All the rockets are gonna, yeah, expire here. Well, and that's it's changing so fast. Actually, Jess has a comment too that everyone you meet knows something that you do not. I love that because it's so true, and it's also like the stories. Most of the things that people are sharing are is not something that you went to school for or that you earned a degree for. That can help. I mean, I think the biggest thing that school taught me was like a framework for learning more, so that as I go into the world, maybe I ask better questions or I am able to establish rapport with people or a level of trust so that we can have that connection. But, it's not like some degree that anybody gets 20, even 5 years ago, it outdates so quickly. If the thing that the school isn't teaching you isn't how to continue learning, then it's probably failing. And we can go on about that because that's the education system. And I love it. I love learning too, but I do think the way we're going to consume education and learning in the future is going to change.
I love it. I have 2 comments, and I wanna make sure we're getting a ton of great, comments in the live chat, but before we jump there, I love the wall behind you from a branding perspective. So, like, you see, I have all these books. Yeah, 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 motivational quotes.
Yeah.
Um, People, especially, like, when I had a corporate office, and I'm not alone here, have their degrees hanging
Oh,
behind.
yeah. Yeah.
I love you're a nature person, I know that about you because 'cause we're friends, right?
Yeah.
And, I love the wall behind you because it really personifies your brand, um, of loving nature. It's, like, approachable. If you had a bunch of degrees behind you, if I'm on the market looking for a coach, I'm kinda like, I don't know, I might have to dig in a little bit more because what what type of what type of person are you? Are
Yeah.
you human underneath of all of that? Or are you just identifying with that?
That is a funny thing, and I was saying to Jen, I have this, new tripod, and so this is a new angle for me, so it's really just luck that this is true because this is how I've learned. This is from our trip around the world. We travel around and we meet people and we live like they do, we eat like they do to the extent that we can. We did that for a year, and that's what we have here. So, and when I lean on anything, it's leaning on that experience, not like, "Quick, let me get my book and my degree and, like, leverage that." I mean, they're both useful, but I think the idea of like this connecting first and then trusting, I think there's also something about imposter syndrome a little bit creeping in because it's really easy when you feel uncomfortable to be like, well, listen, at the end of the day, somebody thought I was smart enough to get this. So you can almost use that for yourself. But the reality is, be secure. It sometimes can point to an insecurity piece as well if you're using that to hide behind. But
Mm.
yeah, I love that you noticed this. I'm like, oh yeah, they are
No,
bad things.
I love it, and you have your I mean, you're pretty modest because you have your area I can never say it, Ayurveda certification and, like, all of these different things, but you never really lead with that as we're talking out loud, I'm like, "Yeah, she really doesn't." Like, you practice what you preach, essentially, is what I'm trying
Well,
to say.
and I do find that that helps. Like, if I'm like, "I'm certified in this and this and this," like, is that interesting? I mean, I don't even like saying it. I can't imagine what it feels like to hear it. S
Yeah.
but if I'm just, like, sharing my experience about things, then I feel like that's a better way, and also it's more fun. Like, at the end of the day, we're on this earth for a short amount of time. What do we wanna do? We wanna have joy, we wanna have fun, we wanna connect to people. These are the things that we're all working towards at the end of the day, and so I feel like that's a really important thing. So I've gotta live it. But yeah,
I
thank
love
you.
that. I love it. Let's look at the comments. Okay,
Yeah.
Marielle says, "You're either learning or you're dying."
Yeah.
Love that. Sid, proof of the lady's concept.
Oh, we got
Um,
another Ayurveda person on here too, Marielle.
Marielle.
Mm.
What did you say? Ayurveda?
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh,
Oh, she
that's
lived in India 10 years. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
tell us more.
I know that does sound really, really cool. I mean, I think that's the thing though, like these tools can feel really far away as well, like Ayurveda or whether it's a neuroscience thing or whether it's a degree, they're kind of like things until you adopt them and you don't usually adopt the whole thing, you take the pieces that work for you. And you won't know what works for you unless you have a little bit of self-trust in there too. So you're like, yeah, I tried that, didn't really work, but this piece did, so I'm integrating that. And so you end up with this totally customizable package of your life, which serves you for a period of time. And then it probably expires and you need to replenish it and tweak a few things, right? Because we're always evolving. But I guess the idea is like the best way to, optimize. I put a pin in that because we don't always need to be optimizing and productive, right? But the idea is like whatever it is that you're going for, whether it's balance or business or family or whatever is important to you, you have different tools available to you. And so how do you package that up and like connecting with other people and sharing learnings? I can't think of a better way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so do you think that coaching is bespoke? Like how do you approach coaching with your clients?
Totally bespoke. I mean, I think storytelling and case studies and these sort of things help a lot. Frameworks can help, but if you have a library of books or a library of frameworks or thing, you have to know which one to pull in the right order and also how to sort of present it, which goes back a little bit to the ego thing. Like have enough of an understanding of where that fits in and be able to share with people so that they also know a little bit what they're getting. But then the feedback is like, oh, this didn't work. Okay, great. Let's like, what did we learn from that experiment? Let's try it again. Let's iterate until we get there. So I do think it does have to be a bit of both. If it's super customizable, it can be really wiggly and hard to like make traction because I think traction is important too. But
Yeah.
like try and iterate. You like listen to learn and understand and then take that on board. And that's one thing I learned a lot when I started, studying coaching was like the the way to ask questions and hold space and not always have the answer. When I very first started, I was so nervous because I thought I had to add the value. I was like, this person is paying me. I need to make sure they have value and I need to be the one to give it. What? How could I, that's like there are frameworks and questions and stuff that coaches do, but that's not how it rolls. There's a little bit of self-trust in that to kind of see how it unfolds. And that person is always has the answer. That's the reality of it. The person always has the answer. They just don't know they always have it. So you have to walk together, as you said.
Turning the lens inward. I love it. Asking questions and holding space. It's a very Socratic method. And also, you have some Covey in there. Like, listen to understand so that you can be understood. And
Yeah.
yeah, we do jump to problem solve like right away to show our value. I've done that too. And it's a delicate balance, but listening is better because I think people can get very overwhelmed too. And
Yeah.
one of the things I struggle with, I would love your thoughts too, is like from a neurodiversity perspective and also connecting with people. I want to match a story with a story, not because I'm not because of ego, because like I get excited because I'm like, oh, you know, Steph, I never climbed Mount Everest. This is just an example. Like Steph climbed Mount Everest. I did this too. Uh, and it could also come across as like a one up
Yeah.
situation, but actually you're trying to connect. And then from a coaching perspective, having the lived experience and stories is helpful for clients. And then, by the way, like, where's the line of how much you share personally versus, listening and understanding and then giving recommendations from there?
I love that so much. And people tell a story and I'm like, oh, I've been there too. And I come at it like, I'm excited that we connect on this point. And so I want to share so that you know that I also understand, right? And so it can be like this, but more often than not, it's just like this idea, like, oh my gosh, me too. And now we're connected, right?
Yeah.
Now we have the idea, and so we can walk together a little closely because we understand ourselves a little bit more, and I understand you more, and now. And that's exciting and that's a human thing. But I think the answer is like there isn't a prescription for that. I think there is just like every conversation is different. Every person you meet is different. They have everybody's viewing the reality with the lens of their own experience. Everything from the way the weather is to whatever their food. I mean, everything has to come in through this lens, and our lenses are all different. And that's very exciting if you can understand that, right? And it's also a little bit like, interesting, because if you really think about it, no two people can experience the same thing the same way. And what
Yeah.
can we learn from that? Even if we all have the same credentials and the same everything, we still wouldn't see it the same way.
Yeah,
So
that's a beautiful thing. I'm looking at the comments again. Tehran says the alchemical ingredient in any therapeutic relationship is the experience of felt safety. The ability to create and hold that space can't be taught in a classroom or learned from a book. It requires a very specific kind of presence, humility, and ability to sit with discomfort. That's beautiful. Put that on a t-shirt. Jason Ives is wanting to create a t-shirt business, and he's actually in here. So that is really that's profound.
love it. I love it.
What
I'll
else
clean
do we
here too.
Hey, Des. Everyone you meet knows something you do not. Shared lived experiences. Thank you, Marielle. Um, loves about learning to use AI. Yes. Um, Dr. Sam Illingworth is a great teacher of using AI with discernment. Highly,
He's
highly
good. Yeah,
recommend.
good.
Right?
Yeah.
What else do we have? Oh, call. Hi, call.
Yeah, all experience is subjective, 100%, except for this. No, I mean, there's no exception to that. I mean, absolutely, yeah, except for what I say because I have some, credentials, so you must be listening to me. Yeah, it's so true though, and you gotta have some fun with it too. Marielle's asking who is that to Dr. Sam?
Um,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah,
Dr. Sam Illingworth. Um, I'll drop his thing in the chat, his handle.
yeah.
See if I can grab it.
Yeah, this is so funny. And so I think it's like an interesting question to think about, like how we honor this expertise that comes from experience, that comes from credentials, that comes from all these things, um, and how we're using it. And I think if we use those things in a way to shut it down, so if we're like, I don't want to have this conversation anymore, and I walk away from it, but I sort of close it down. That's one way that you can use credentials, and I've seen that. I don't advocate for that. I don't try not to do that, but or you can use your credentials and lived experience in order to establish that. So like, oh, you have an MBA, I have an MBA too. What did you think about it? Whatever, you're having a conversation. Or in my view, this is the lane that I'm in. If you have an MBA, you can generally assume that at some point that person was interested in business or operates in business in the same way that if someone's got, a JD, they're probably in law, right? So there are some, assumptions also as we try to navigate the world, right? There are people everywhere. We're trying to like navigate and our human brain can only take so much. So it's kind of like you're also just trying to understand and that is a mechanism. And for that, it's useful. But it just establishes a little bit you have to go deeper and think about like the quality of the relationship and the quality of the person and their lived experience on top of that. And then it becomes, a useful thing. But
Yeah,
it's hard to get that across in social media sometimes.
it is. It is. I see, to your point, I see so many posts that start with as a blank, insert profession. Even like on TikTok.
Yeah.
There's I'm following the Lindsay Clancy case. I can't look away. I'm watching it in small nuggets because it's like very overwhelming and triggering from a
Yeah.
female perspective. And I see a lot of people commenting online about it, some with credentials, some without. And it's interesting, as a psychiatrist with X amount of years of experience, of course, there's credibility there, depending on I'm just thinking out loud. Let me back that up a little bit, depending on the person. Like years of experience also it doesn't necessarily mean that you know anything about the topic that you're I mean, I've seen
Yeah.
people with years of experience where I'm in the workplace and I'm going, "How does this
Yeah.
person have a job?" Like,
How about
not
if I just the next time I go to a meeting, I'm gonna be like, "Listen, as a coach with 3 weeks of experience, I want you to understand." Like, "Oh my god, wait, is that," and also, like, it's a funny thing. It's kind of like no one wants to admit they're just starting out, but actually, we should all be acting like we've just started out, and this is like the growth mindset in a way. But it's like, "Yes, I've been coaching for 49 years." I mean, no, of course not, but, like, okay, does that mean that I should listen to you? Or does it also mean, and this is true for medicine as well, like, the longer that you've been away from school or the longer that you've been away, you could be diverging from the reality of the situation. So in some ways, and I think medicine has changed a little bit, but like the freshest medical students and the youngest doctors, two things. They were the most plugged in because they just graduated, and two, they don't have this sort of, I want to be careful here. I will just going to say like arrogance that sometimes happens where they're like, listen, I've seen this 100 times. I already know the answer. And so there's this level of they're not digging in anymore. They stop asking questions. And so isn't that ironic that actually sometimes the best people, or not the best people, the people with the best ideas are the people that have the least amount of experience.
Yes. Wait, I love that so much. It's like somebody who has worked at the same organization for years and years, for a corporate analogy, and it's like, let's say they're in marketing hypothetically,
Hmm.
and they've been marketing for one company for 40 years.
Yep.
Know a lot about that company, but the thing is, you don't know what you don't know. That's why you hire new people to come in and get fresh eyes on things. Um, it's funny, I'm sharing a little bit about this as I go through it, but I have like it's called it was PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. It's now called PMOS because they're viewing the cysts on the ovaries as a full endocrine system issue versus just, a localized ovarian issue. So it impacts my whole endocrine system. My doctor's awesome. Like, I literally love her. I know she knows her stuff. She's got great bedside manner. But also, like, she's getting me help. So I was referred to an endocrinologist. It'll be the first time that I ever see one when I was just talking about my OBG. Um, but this is a situation where I feel like, yes, a degree and experience and people looking at my ovaries would be
Yeah.
helpful. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Um, so anyway, it's in medical, yes. Like,
100%.
don't have a doctor cut somebody open and do open heart surgery with no training, no schooling, no nothing. Like,
Yep.
it just
And the best people, in my opinion, who are really good at what they do, they have that schooling, and that is intense. Like you absolutely want that. They have earned that, and they're still asking questions and they're still listening to you because, like, how are you feeling and what is your diet or whatever the information is, they're adding that to, and that's where the magic happens. If you can have this, academic, whatever you want to call it, credentialed, framework, right? And then you layer on your own lived experience. And then the third layer of that is not yours. It's coming to you from the patient, the client, the kid, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you have this perfect pie because you've got all the ingredients in it. And so I think this is a huge piece of it that sometimes isn't taught. It's like we're giving you a platform now, but you need to add to it in whatever the scenario is, be it teaching or surgery or whatever it is. Like, you can't do that blindly. You have to get the input, and the input's coming a lot of times from the other person.
that's such a beautiful thing, and the lived experience, and yeah, the field. Um, Colleen says, "Honesty is magnetic, beginner's mind." If you're not following Colleen Kenny, definitely follow her. Another great leader. Steph, Call, and I all know each other, and she's a good human and teaches it. Oh, this is interesting. I'm defaulting to she's a good human and she teaches at NYU. I'm throwing the credentials. No,
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I think it's okay, right? I mean, it's not like we're saying not to do it, right? It's just like
no, no. Yeah,
it's part of the mix. It's part of the story. It's not like here's nothing about Colleen, nothing, except she's got a PhD and she teaches here. So that's all you need to know. But
yeah.
actually, she's an awesome human and she happens to do these things. So go ahead and follow. You know what I mean?
There
It's
you
not
go.
all
Yeah,
we didn't plan to talk about you, but I'm just saying, like, it's part of it. It's kind of like other information our brain needs. But
yeah.
yeah, it's a balance.
What else do we have?
Yeah.
Marielle. Oh,
Oh, I like this from Des as well, that sometimes we're using credentials and things as a proxy for knowledge. And I think this is huge. And this goes to this idea of like kind of hiding behind it a little bit, or is like, listen, I'm not even gonna engage with this anymore. I mean, I have already proven to myself, look at the numbers behind my name, or numbers, letters, look at me. I'm like, oh, our credentials numbers now. But it's
data,
not.
data,
It,
data.
yeah, if you can hide behind that and just like, yeah, it shuts down the conversation that's not doing the job. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. I think too from a in the medical field specifically, like a lot of times things are siloed when the reality is everything's connected. So like I have my psychiatrist over here, my psychologist over here, I'm going to have my endocrinologist over here. If they're not the systems aren't talking, so me then as an advocate for myself, I am in a position where I then have to connect those dots because like you said at the top of the call, nobody knows you better than you know yourself.
Yeah. And that's a big ask, and medical is a good topic, but it applies everywhere, schools as well. Like we're asking people to do a big job to be well done. Not everybody's equipped. And then what happens to them? They don't get the same sort of experience. I remember in the UK, because that's where I had my son. And one thing I found fascinating was like they give us the paperwork. So the moms end up by the end of a pregnancy with papers, and this is your file. Like the doctors don't keep it. And then when you go to an ultrasound or you go to this, you're bringing your own papers with you. And I always thought to myself, what happens if I forget or you lose them or something? I try to be very organized and responsible, but I'm still human. So like how do you forget this? And so the onus is on the person to bring it all together. Can we do better? Like if you're in a position to be able to do a little bit of that and like team up and collaborate with people, that is probably going to be better, but that's not how we are trained. We are siloed, and you see that in business as well. Like you're only talking to the operations team right now. They don't care about sales. They're talking about ops. And then you go to sales and they're like, actually, they're fighting a lot of the time. It's like, how do we come together? And I think a lot of that's probably a little bit more ego driven in my experience because they're like, I've been in sales for 40 years and I know how to make numbers. And the ops guys are like, I used to work at Amazon and I know everything about ops. And it's like, okay, guys, but put that to the side and like, let's align on the vision and work together because that experience is worth something,
Mm,
but it is worth a whole lot more if we can pull it together. And so
yeah,
we see that in different areas.
yeah, that's from a business perspective, it's interesting. I worked in transportation for a little while and like the natural I was in HR, but I trained like I was literally calling truck drivers, "Hey, I have a load picking up a truckload picking up from A to B. I have $1,400 on this load. Like, can you haul it? Here's what it is." All of that.
Yeah.
Temp control, not so I learned like logistics is really cool. I learned a whole nother um language within that industry, though, not speaking of a specific organization, but from an industry perspective, there's a natural rub between the account managers who are managing the customers or the sales reps who are managing the customers and the ops team who's actually the ones responsible for communicating with the motor carriers, and things happen that are outside of the control and then that stresses somebody out and then things come to a head and it's like, how can you, like you said, we have a shared vision, but in the moment it can feel really um tenuous and like siloed. And so how do we work together? That's probably like the number one issue across all teams in
I
business when you're siloed.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's really interesting because when things get crunchy, that's also when our defaults come into play. Like there's an issue, there's a problem, we're trying to solve it. And I need you to listen to me because I'm the one that knows how to do it. Or that's when you have less time and you switch into activated nervous system and you're like, okay, listen, you just have to listen to me because I'm a VP or I'm a whatever, and you sort of switch a little bit. So even in our best moments there are times where you just have to make the call, and that's totally understandable. And I think it is just about this balance. Like we have this experience, we have these credentials, we have this team or whatever it is, but like have this back and forth between I really need to make a call. This is what we're doing, and I'm doing this because it's my business, and this is ultimately my responsibility. And then later coming back to, okay, let's talk it through, let's get some input and going back and forth. But I think a lot of the wins are around this flexible approach and not always approaching it this way, having a growth mindset and being able to connect to people like legitimately and get some feedback because we'll all be better for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Less focus on the credential, like I'm a VP, and more focus on the solution. The term I'm a VP, I'm going to tell you, like that's triggering. I've heard that before. Like you can't, and I'm like, I have the same pants as them. We put our pants on the same way. I'm just not, I think my neurobiology is, and I know I'm not alone in saying this again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but hierarchical systems are very interesting to me because like there's politics involved. Again, there's the credentialing and things like that, but a lot of times you get jobs because of who you know. I mean, there's a stat out there. I don't have it on hand. I'll include it in the write up, but it's a high percentage of jobs that are never even posted up until, you're legally required and have to do the process of getting somebody to apply so you have the application. Um, some jobs don't get, they're through referrals and through your network. And so I think that's good to know, but also it can be frustrating if I'm looking at a VP who's a VP. I mean, they're a VP on the org chart, but to me, they're operating like a senior specialist. Like,
Right.
there's a big gap there. I mean, but who made me? Then again, who made me the judge of like, the disparity in position, though? Seriously.
Yeah. Actually, you just touched on something too that you see a lot in business, which is like, and this is changing. I feel it changing, but even when I started out in corporate, it was like, okay, well, you have to take this entry level and you have to do it for a certain amount of time, and then you get to moved up and you do it a certain amount here, and there's a ceiling. And unless you go and get a graduate degree, or unless you have a college degree at all, so like bachelor's will get you to here, but then there's a ceiling. And then a master's degree will get you to here, but there's a ceiling. And there's another ceiling though. If you get a PhD, you're overqualified. And I'm like, this is a framework that you have designed around credentials with no thought to really anything else. And I've seen, and you're seeing it now, like people come in who are 17 years old with no experience at all, making absolute bank and like delivering brilliant ideas for the world. You do not need a credential to go out there and make a difference. You do not need a credential to start a business and do well for yourself, or to start a nonprofit and connect to people and make a real difference in the world. Equally, you can have all the credentials in the world, have a crap job, hate it, be a jerk. And it's like, so those things, like, we just have to keep that in mind because the rules are changing. They've always kind of been that way, though. It's like, I'm sorry, but why is a bachelor's degree suddenly making this person better than someone who's been brilliant at the work and really needs to escalate but never went to college? Right. So why are we putting these things in place?
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a good point. And my personal opinion on this, and Colleen Kenny actually talks about this too, like the pendulum swinging the other way. And also, like, why would this is just again, my opinion, but at this point, with the accessibility of AI, of social media, um, why would I go pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a degree if I can come right out of school and, start my own thing and have control of my schedule, autonomy over my life? I mean, some people will need to, depending on the track that they're going, but you have so many people, especially with, like, I have a bachelor's in comms and media. It's very, broad because I had no clue, when my frontal lobe wasn't fully developed, what the heck that
Yeah.
what I wanted to study. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think it's really unfair to ask people that early on, but I think breathing some space into this, especially when you're around that age, is really smart. And so, like, I went to university. I didn't even think about it. It was just like such a natural thing. My family had done it. It wasn't even something that I realized I could not do. To be fair, and I think it is changing. It's like what lights you up? Where's your joy? What do you want to do in the world? And is there more than one path? If you want to be a lawyer right now, there's no other path. You have to go to undergrad, then you have to go to law school. You have to sit the bar, pass the bar, and then you can practice. There's an on ramp, and that's unlikely to change in the immediate future, in my opinion. But if you want to be a lawyer because you care deeply about human rights and you want to do some other stuff, there's another avenue. So people are getting really creative now with different ways to approach that. And I think that's really exciting because there's more than one way to make that impact. So
That's Steph. I love what you said earlier about joy, fun, and connection and
mm,
following that. It ties back to one of our first conversations on here, following your joy. And I know we're running up against time, but tell me, you have a cohort starting, right? Next,
Yeah.
is it in September?
Yeah, it's the second week of September on the 8th. So this is a clarity under pressure 3-week workshop. And I'm just finding, especially with leaders in this, in my peer groups that are just feeling overwhelmed because there's just so much on. And you know what happens when people feel overwhelmed and under pressure? Actually, the nervous system is just trying to keep us safe. But what it looks like is it narrowing of choices and operating out of decisions out of different parts of your brain. And usually the best decisions are not made in that state. So I just thought would take something that can be a little long and complicated and get it real narrowed down. So it's like a 3-week workshop, and we're just going to get one decision point that's making you feel overwhelmed, and we're going to work through it on a framework that can be repeated. So yeah, I'm excited about that because clarity, especially in this world with all the noise, is really helpful.
Yeah, and it's a couple seats, right? I think you said you're keeping it small.
Yeah, I'm calling it semi-private, so it'll be 2 to 4 people, and then if it's more than that sign up, I'll just open another cohort that runs concurrently because I think there's something about being in a small group that's, really useful for shared experiences, but it's almost like private coaching, but because we get to go deep, and I'll do a private onboarding call with everybody as well because I want everybody to have one thing, understand what it is, first identify it, and then be able to work through it in that period. So 3 weeks I find is enough to get through one thing. But isolating that one thing is why we have the onboarding call because sometimes that's not always clear.
That's awesome, and I imagine you can lift and shift that framework to, like, other problems in your
Yep,
life.
100%. That's the idea.
Maybe
Repeatable.
problems, maybe they're decision points, but
Decision point. Yeah. Yeah.
opportunities.
100%. 100%. So yeah, I think
Awesome. Where can people sign up for it?
I will do a write up on my Substack, as and also on my website, which is stephaniehingley.com. There's a page at the top which says clarity under pressure. You can sign up there. But just DM me too. I'm happy to oops, I just moved my tripod. I'm happy to connect with anybody who's got questions or anything. So just find me on Substack and go from there.
Awesome, and you're doing some lives too, right? You have
With
some with some pe or you're looking to connect and do lives with other
Oh yeah, for sure. For
people
sure.
as well.
Yeah, I've done some speaking
Yeah.
face to face as well, but I mean the lives thing and the podcasts are so fun and they're much lighter lift. So I'm trying to do more of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so if you're interested also in connecting with Steph from that perspective, definitely reach out. She's awesome. This is our 4th live, so super excited. Always great to have you. Wealth
Thank
of knowledge. And thank you everybody who joined. This was such a dynamic conversation. In the comments, be sure to follow or subscribe actually to Stephanie's page and to mine if you're not
yeah.
subscribed. And I'm gonna drop Steph's in the chat too, really, before
You're
we
so
have.
good, Jen. I don't know how you do it. You're doing all the stuff and it's a lot to manage. You're nailing it.
I'm try I'm trying. I should have it better organized, right? But no, this has been such a good conversation. I'm trying to find your.
This is how we roll though. Like this is what makes it good. It's easy, it's authentic, it's fun, it's light. I'm like, oh yeah, I can send that. I didn't even think about the clarity under pressure thing. Like, yes, it's on my website, which is not the same as my Substack, but we'll figure it out.
Yes, we will. Oh, and thank you for calling me organized.
Yeah.
Olamide, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name. Feel free to correct me. Oh, your sessions are easy to follow. Thank you. Yes, continue to join. Come back. We'll do more of these as well. It's so much fun. I feel so energized after we get off the call. So, yeah, sign up for Steph's workshop. Um, I know that it's going to be awesome. And yeah, we will see you next time. We'll have to have a continuation of this conversation because I feel like we hit the tip of the iceberg and
We always do. We always
all
leave
right.
good stuff for later too. Oh, that was awesome. Thanks, Jen. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. All right. Bye bye.
See ya.